Okay, so we'll be going over lesson D. There are 4 things that I'm getting you to do. Let's go to the what to do part. So there are 4 things to do. One is called responsive web design. We're gonna apply that to index HTML to all the icons so that initially you have 3 columns and then it's gonna be 1 column if the width is narrow enough. We're gonna apply transition and transform so that when you hover on each icon, it's gonna play your little animation so that it shows you that you have mouse on the icon. We're gonna create some shortened HTML. If you've never used them, I'm gonna use the service from Bitly to create you a shortened URL to go to your website so that could be your website nicely printed rather than a Google version of it. And then a QR code for your website. It's not really much to do, but it's important that you know how. All right, so first of all, responsive web design. If you were to go to this W3 site, you'll see an example of where you have 3 columns when your screen is wide enough, but when your screen is narrow and to a point, it snaps to this up and down layout. Okay, and this is called responsive web design, so that you just have to write your web page once, and if the screen is wide enough, it's gonna display 3 columns. If the screen is narrow, say on a phone where you are viewing things portrait mode, things are gonna be up and down. Otherwise, you have to make 1 page for each, and then you have to find out what is the layout of the screen. You will be making use of a CSS library from the internet. So you're gonna copy this link, style sheet, whatever. So copy this. Where do I put this? You're gonna put this in the head section. This example is not laid out the way that there is a head section, but let me show you as an example. Let's see if I have example to show you. I have to open up to my level 1 folder. To my level 1, I think this one is it. Okay, and there's the index. I'm gonna load the index folder. Looks like it's already doing that, but not really. Okay, so the reason why this 3 icons snaps in and out, it's because it's like a text, right? So it's flowing on its own, so it's using layout of 1 or 2 or 3. But if I have more icons, I think it's gonna be more obvious. Let's see. JPEG icons, 3 of them. I'm just gonna duplicate this one so that I'll have more material to play with. Although, all right, so I have 9 icons. Currently, it looks like this. So it's just flowing on its own. But if I want the layout to be either 3 columns or 1 column and nothing in between, I have to do some setup. So according to here, it's putting things in 3 different divs. Okay, so and then it has this class. So we know what they are, but let's see. I'm gonna copy this CSS style sheet to here, right? So I'm gonna see. I have my own style here, but we're gonna paste that link in here. And if I just reload it, it doesn't really do anything. Well, there's something that changes. See that things now are attached to the edge. And if I want to see what that CSS is, I can really just copy and paste that URL to here. And then that CSS, if you want to see it in a nice format, you can just gonna test.css. I'm gonna paste it down here. And this is basically the CSS that you are getting. It's quite a bit, all right? But this is what we call a CSS library. We're just linking it, and then we can use it. Now, it's using divs. There's a wrapper around all this, around everything. So these are all the pictures that I have. I'm gonna put in, so this wraps. There's a start and there's the end. Okay, so start div, end div. It's gonna wrap around all my 9 images at this point, and I'm gonna have it laid out on its own. Okay, so you can see it automatically adjusted so that all these images or linking images are one tap in. Okay, now inside it, it has 3 divs. It says W3 third. So it has this W3 third, and this is a div that wraps around 3 images in my case. Okay, so again, I'm gonna do a little formatting. So you see, these 3 images is inside a div. This div is inside a wrapping div. I'm gonna do the same thing with the subsequent images. So I'm gonna wrap next 3 images into another div, and last 3 images into another div. I'm not gonna worry about the tapping. I'm just gonna let it do itself, right? So, one extra. That's why it's not doing it correctly. Okay, so now I have the library linking, and I can use the class that is defined by the library, the wrapping one in the outside, and then 3 divs with the class third. So if I have that done, and notice how this changed. Okay, so now it changed to this. I have 3 columns, and it's gonna snap to 1 column, right? So that's the effect of it, right? Well, looks like the spaces in between these images are now gone. I could probably add some padding or margins to make the space if I wanted to, but for now I'd like you to add them to images, sorry, to these icons. That's part 1. So that's responsive web design. Part 2 is to get your, I mean, if you want to apply to something else other than the icons, it's up to you, okay? But make sure it's somewhere to be found on the homepage. Transform. Right, so here you have an example that when you hover on something, it transforms from the class itself to the hover version of the class. So I am going to take it to maybe an image inside a link. So I could say, so this will be targeted into image specifically underneath or inside a anchor tag. And okay, let me just go to this link and copy the property. I think it's easy that way. Right. I can say hover. When I hover on it, I want it to rotate. Okay, this is just one of the examples. Let's see what that does to it. I don't think it's pointing to the right thing. I'm just gonna say, oh, missing the R, that's why. Okay, so it's doing that, okay? But it's kind of ugly because now it just rotate 20. It does not look good, right? I want to have that smooth transition so that it goes from one to the other nicely. So how do I achieve that? I have some code in here that you can apply to. Right, so I can say if I have image underneath a link, when I hover on it, I want to rotate. But if I were to get rid of the hover, and create another definition for it. And I can put my transition in. Transition. In this case, I'm doing transform, right? So I can say if I'm transform, I'm gonna take 2 seconds to do that. Transform 2 seconds. Okay. And that should apply to it, where it's gonna take 2 seconds for it to finish the rotating. Let's see if that works. Okay, looks like it works. Okay, if I want the rotating speed to be faster, I can reduce this number and it's gonna be rotating faster. If I want it to be even more snappier, I just reduce the number and then it's gonna do that. Okay, now rather than just rotate, you can do multiple. Like in my example here, it shows you that you could specify a color, you can specify a font size, a border, and then all of this you can have kind of animation going where you can specify transition and how long it's going to take for you to change color, for you to change the font size, to change the border, to transform with rotation and whatnot. There are other things that rotation that you can do. You can change the style of the picture. You can do a lot of things. That's that. Any questions on transform? I guess you'll find out more when you're working on it. Next thing is bit.ly. So this is item number 3, bit.ly. So what bit.ly is a shortener. Say, for instance, you see, when I type mrchen.ca, this is a domain name that I purchased, okay, where it's not expensive. It's like around 15 to 20 Canadian a year if you want a domain name. Depending on what you pick, it could be expensive too. But this is what I pay for. So it does not stay put on mrchen.ca. It redirects me to this link. This is the link for my home page. For you, it's gonna look similar, but this is harder to remember. So if I were to copy this and go to bit.ly, I sign in for it so that it remembers what it is. I could create a bit.ly. So I can say enter the long URL. So that's the default link to mrchen.ca. And I can say create. And I can change this back half of the link. So this will be the new link. Okay, this bit.ly mrchen.ca, it's gonna go to that site once I hit create. I think I created this already, that's why it's doing that. I can paste that bit.ly mrchen.ca, and then it's gonna take me to my site. Okay, so this will be easier of a URL to remember, and I would like you to print that URL again onto your homepage somewhere. Okay, so that's working. Have a link too, so I can click on it to verify that it works. Keyword generator, that is just copy and paste. So you paste your URL code in there, your URL site, your URL to your website, and then you could generate an icon, and you can download it. Okay, you can pick any style, doesn't matter, whatever you like. And you have the preview there, but make sure you test this with your phone, see if it works. Okay, I think this will work already without a download. You can simply save that as an image, copy that down as a PNG, however you want to do. But I want to see the URL again on your website somewhere. All right, so let me know if you run into any issues, but that's the lesson.